Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell, give 'em a hand, and let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town, of New York town.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Mets Talk Live right here on the channel, Talking Mets at Rob. How is everybody doing today on this off day for our New York Mets? Hopefully everybody is doing okay. We did get another series win, but our winning streak did come to an end yesterday. The Mets lose 5-3 against the Texas Rangers. You can't win them all, but it was a little frustrating yesterday because I felt like they had enough opportunities to win the ball game. The pitching wasn't that good. Should have been better. The offense really didn't pick up. But what are you going to do, right? What are you really going to do? You can't win them all. What you hope that happens now, and me and Chris talked about this on a post. When he talked about it on a post game, we talked it multiple times on a pregame. It's when you're hot, everything's going well, so it doesn't feel like there's a ton of pressure. Now there's expectation. Now there's pressure because of the fact they finally lost, and now I want to see the bounce back, right? They haven't had to worry about a bounce back, let's be honest, in 8 games, right? As their winning streak was going on, they didn't have to worry about a bounce back because they kept on winning. Now, you lost the last game of the series, you have an off day, and you got to fly to Chicago, playing a Chicago team that just won the last 2 games that they played. And I believe, not sure if they played today, but they won their last 2 games, and they're riding a little bit high right now. And you just hope that the Mets can bounce back. That's the most important thing. You want them to bounce back. And I don't think the Cubs are playing today. Yes, the Cubs are not playing today. All right, so the Cubs won their last 2 games, and they're playing a little bit better in those 2 games. So they got a little bit of a high, right? They're coming in facing the red-hot Mets who finally lost. This is a team that is, if you look at the standings, we are basically, and I put 23-33 for the record, but the Mets are 35-38. The Cubs are 36-39, right? We have 1 less win and 1 less loss, right? We're right there. We are absolutely right there. So this is a crucial series, not just because we're in that mediocre wildcard race, but this is another situation where there's a lot of tiebreakers that could happen later in the year, right? The Mets have been pretty good with tiebreakers, right? They either have a lead on with a couple of games still to play against teams, or they've already won the season series and won that tiebreaker. I believe there's two teams that the Giants and the Diamondbacks that they lost the season series against. Okay, that's fine, but you have to beat Chicago, right? You got to win the series, right? Everybody would like a sweep, obviously, but it's okay. Win the series, and you come back home for another off day, and you'll be ready to go to face the Yankees on Tuesday and Wednesday, on the 25th and the 26th. So that's what the Mets have to do here, right? The bounce back is probably more important than the 7-game winning streak, right? Because when everything's going right and winning's happening and there's just everything just working, it's easy, right? What pressure? Well, now, and they talked about this with the meeting. There wasn't any pressure on them after that players meeting, right? Everybody expected them to lose, so what pressure did they really have? There was no expectation during that stretch because nobody expected them to do anything. Now, what do they do now when they're expected to win? When there is pressure, when there is expectation from Mets fans now, when we are back into this race in the wild card, a game out of a wild card spot, out of the second and third wild card spot, by the way, what is their next move? Is it a bounce back? Or is it what we saw after our last hot streak in April when we went to LA, took the first two, and then lost the last game of the series 10-0, and we went on that downward spiral in May after that Dodger game? Is that going to happen again? They've been playing extremely well. They've been picking each other up. When the pitching hasn't been doing something, the offense has been doing something. When the offense hasn't been doing something, the pitching has been picking them up, right? Yesterday was a combination of both not doing their job. And there was a lot of people talking about Daniel Nunez that wasn't in the ball game, but we found out that he had a sinus infection and wasn't available. So it went to plan B once you didn't have Daniel Nunez. So again, it's really not about where Mendoza went bullpen-wise, because for the most part, everybody's been pretty decent over this stretch. So it's hard to kill him for who he went to. And, of course, you're going to complain after the results happen because we're all Monday morning quarterbacks, right? We bitch and moan when it doesn't work and complain he should have done something else, right? That's typical. After the results, you get mad and he said he should have done something else, right? But in the moment, probably nobody was saying, oh, we should put this person in. Now, a lot of people wanted Nunez in, right? I think I tweeted it out. A couple other people tweeted it out that I've seen on X. But still, we didn't know at the moment. But when you find out that he wasn't available, well, that's a whole new ballgame. When you don't have Nunez, one of your best relievers in your bullpen, what are you going to do, right? You're going to go to your other options. Ralph, yes, I know it's wrong on the wildcard standings, but it's right on the East standings, so 35 and 38. Ryan, yes, it is. It is how you start, but it's not how you start, but how you finish. Absolutely. But again, there's a long way to go. And Ibby, no problem, buddy. It's okay, no problem. Robert, I don't care about the Yankees. Don't matter. I don't care if they're losing 17-5. I see it. Doesn't affect me either way. Has nothing to do with the Mets until the 25th and the 26th of this month, on Tuesday and Wednesday. That's when I care about the Yankees because we're facing them. Don't care. Right? We worry about the Chicago Cubs. That's what we should worry about. Because everything else is irrelevant. Tomorrow is the most important game. The Yankee games are important on the 25th and the 26th because we're playing them. That's it. I mean, it's something that is very interesting. Yeah, Ralph, batting 500. Hey, listen. Since I've been making typos, the Mets have been winning. So, and that wasn't on purpose. I promise you that. Right? I just had to put something together really quick on the wild card standings just to show where the Mets are, game back-wise is correct. So I do apologize for that little bit of a mistake there. But yeah, guys, listen. I know it was frustrating. Like a lot of people were upset yesterday. And look, eventually the Mets were going to lose. Like they weren't going to stay in this winning streak forever, right? We'd love that, but it's ultimately impossible. So you have to understand that as well, right? They were going to lose, right? Either if it was yesterday before the game was over, or it was a game in Chicago, or it was a game or two against the Yankees. We were going to eventually lose. But the winning streak is nice. But the bounce back and how quickly they bounce back after this loss yesterday is more important because we've seen this ball game before. We've seen this play out before. They were on a hot streak in April after their 0-5. They go to the Dodgers. They went to LA looking good, win the first two, then lose 10-0. Ever since then, that moment, they went on a terrible May. And then they turned it back around and got back into the thick of things in the wildcard standings in June, right? This is similar to what's happening right now. They had a hot streak. They finally lost. Now, they didn't lose 10-0 yesterday. They lost 5-3. That's okay. But I want to see tomorrow in the day game in Wrigley, you go out there and play like you have been playing over the last 2+ weeks. Go out there and be relentless. Don't give the Cubs any type of energy. Don't give them any type of momentum. Go out there and do your job, right? There's pressure on them now. You know, everybody couldn't wait to talk about this guy's clutch, that guy's clutch. Oh, look at that big home run. Look at that big home run. Yeah, when everything's going right, now we want to talk about everybody being clutch. You know when a player's clutch, a team is clutch, a team that we're considering a good team now? When they come out after a loss tomorrow and Lindor hits a big home run, Alonso hits a big home run, right? Nimmo gets a big hit, right? When you finally lose and there's expectations now and people expect you to win and now there's pressure, guess what? That's when clutch is put on a name of a player, on the side of the name of that player. That's the pressure. I don't want to hear everybody couldn't wait to call every player clutch that they're trying to root for, that they had their back more than others on this team. Oh, look how clutch this guy is. Look how clutch that guy is. Yeah, tomorrow's clutch. You know why tomorrow's clutch? Because now the pressure is on, right? The hot streak is still going on. Just because you only lost once in the last 8 games doesn't mean that the winning streak can't still happen. They can still win 2 out of 3 and, win 10 of 12. But you have to understand something. Clutch and pressure comes when the hot streak and the winning streak comes to an end. Because you can easily go into a losing streak rather quickly. You lose tomorrow, now it's 2 in a row. Now you got to win the next 2 games to win the series, which is much harder. So that's pressure. That is clutch moments. Not when everything's going right and everything just seems like it's raising up roses here and everything's going well. That's not pressure. Right? When everything's going well, it comes with ease. But when you lose, and now there's expectation along with that pressure, let me see them come up tomorrow and do the job. Don't score 1 run tomorrow and lose 3-1 and talk to me about clutch. Because tomorrow will be the clutch moment, not the last week and a half. Just that simple. It is just that simple. Let me just check something really quick. Just want to make sure I did something right here. Because for some reason, I'm losing the chat, and that kind of annoys me. Give me a second, guys. I'm trying to work on the chat now. It kind of froze on me. So I do not see a lot of the chat right now, and that kind of annoys me because I am by myself, and I like to talk to you guys. Give me a second, guys. Let me just figure this damn thing out. All right. I think I resetted it. Give me a second, guys. So let me just let it pop up so I can actually see what you guys are writing. I think the last one I saw was about the record, and then it just froze. All right. I think it's going to work now. At least I hope it works now. All right, guys. Give me one more minute, and I'll have it ready to go. Go to resetting. Oh, I love StreamYard and YouTube. All right. All right. Okay, guys. Here we go. I think it's going to pop up. And I also think my actual background with the right record is actually going to pop up too. So I see exactly what happened here. The chat just froze. All right. I think I see you guys right now. All right. All right. Look at that. All right. I think I see it again. All right. Here we go. Perfect. All right. And oh, look at that. I see something. All right. I see Daniel writing. I see Frank writing, Ryan writing, Stanley. Okay. And Paula. Okay. Perfect. Yes. And yeah, Daniel, absolutely. Oh, Daniel? Oh, okay. You did. Listen, but you know, me and Chris been talking about that, right? We've been talking about the bounce back, right? Everything is easy when you're winning, right? I'm sick and tired of people saying, "Oh, that's a clutch moment here and there," when you're on a winning streak, when everything has been going right. Now, those are nice home runs. Those are nice big hits, absolutely. But when things are going right, it doesn't feel like there's pressure, right? Pressure is tomorrow after a loss when you want to bounce back from a loss. Keep the hot streak going, right? The winning streak's over. Start a new one. There's no reason why over the next 10 you can't go 7-3. There's no reason for that. There's no reason for that. If you're as hot as everybody says you are and quote unquote clutch as everybody says they are, well, go out there, beat the Cubs tomorrow. And because I tell you right now, if the Mets lose tomorrow, and it's predominantly because of the offense, people are going to be chirping. Because now you're going on 2 games losing in a row. And that the next loss is going to start a losing streak. Right? Now, the Mets do have a tough order tomorrow. They got Shota Imanaga. That's not going to be easy. But the Mets have been beaten up on good pitching over this stretch. So there's no excuse. I'm sorry. There is no excuse, right? They beat up on 2 pitchers against the Rangers that were pitching extremely well, right? They beat up on Dylan Cease, right? I mean, Shota Imanaga has been extremely good, but they've been beating better pitching. Go out there and beat them, right? Because I'm going to bring it up right away. I have no problem bringing it up because people don't like to criticize much people at all when things are going right and certain players aren't playing well. The fact is, I'm going to tell you right now, as hot as this lineup is, right, the top 4 have been absolutely out of this world, specifically JD Martinez, and everybody else has been following suit over this hot streak. But I will get on this team tomorrow. You better not score 1 run tomorrow. I tell you that right now. Because it shouldn't happen. You can't be that hot. Even though Shota Imanaga has been tough and has been really good this year, beat him up. Nobody's saying you have to hit home runs over the wall. But you know what? Make him work. He throws strikes. Put the bat on the ball. Let the defense make mistakes. Right? It's a Cubs team. Yes, they won 2 in a row, but they are a team that has been struggling. There's been talk on the north side of Chicago about the trade deadline, similar to what the Mets fans were talking about not more than 3 weeks ago about fire sale come trade deadline. The Chicago Cubs have been talking about that as well. So we're playing another team like the San Diego Padres that had higher expectations, that were a lot of people's favorites to win the division going into the season, especially with the trade of Corbin Burns from the Brewers to the Orioles. It was basically the Cubs division to lose. And they're not playing well at all. They're a couple of games under 500. They've been hovering around that mark for a while. I think they went on a stretch when they lost like 13 out of 16 or something like that. not too long ago, they have not been playing well. You got to go out there and beat them, right? You've been playing better than them over the whole month of June. Show it, right? There's pressure now. I keep on talking about that, right? Pressure is when you lose. Pressure is when you're behind the 8 ball. And I wouldn't say they're necessarily behind the 8 ball. And there goes more of the chat. All right. Yes, of course. Yeah, we might get 80 wins max. But you know who also might get 80 wins max? The St. Louis Cardinals and the Washington Nationals that are 36 and 37. So it doesn't matter what the record is, right? If you end up being any of the, because probably not the first wild card, but if you're in the second or third wild card, nobody's going to give a damn what your record is. I'm sorry. Even if it ain't the Mets. Even if it ain't the Mets. Doesn't matter. If it's a 500 team that makes the playoffs, you make the playoffs. The playoffs setup is how it is. Who cares how it happens? Do you think the Phillies, who were 3 games over 500 in 2022, care when they made their World Series run? They're running the playoffs? No. Doesn't matter. What about the Diamondbacks, who were a couple of games over 500 last year, made the run to the World Series? Are you going to care if that's the Mets? Not saying it will happen. There's a lot more to talk about to happen during this baseball season. But if they do follow suit and have a game or two over 500 or at 500 making the playoffs, and they go on a run in the playoffs, which clearly anybody can, right? It doesn't matter if you're the best team in baseball. It doesn't matter who you're facing. If you are hot at that right time, you can beat anybody. It's baseball. We've seen this already. We've seen this during this new wild card, 3-team wild card playoff teams. It's been happening, especially the teams that you face as a wild card team. Either they have the first series off, or a team that is the third one of the division winners, but they have flaws. It's possible. So we'll see. But to worry about what record they'll have doesn't matter. The Mets are 3 games under 500. There's teams that are 3 games under 500, 2 games under 500. There's a pretty good chance that the third wildcard team, maybe even the second, might be at 500, maybe a game or 2 over. It's just the way it's been playing out, and that's okay. It really doesn't matter. Well, if you want to be negative after winning 7 in a row and losing 1 game, go ahead. That's on you. That's fine. That's fine. If you want to be like that, I don't care. And you play into the grimace thing, right? I'm not watching the game and somebody hits a big home run for the Mets and I'm talking about grimace. I'm talking about the player who hit that big home run. I don't care about that. It doesn't matter. It's a fun thing to talk about because it's all posted on social media. That's it. And you can call it stupid all you want. It's not your show. So it doesn't matter. Right? Play into it. Enjoy it. If you can't enjoy a stretch with the Mets right now, then why are you a fan at all of any team, of any sport? Why can't you enjoy something that is enjoyable right now? And you're already talking about a losing streak. So if you're saying they're going to lose 4 games the rest of this week, that means they're getting swept against Chicago. No, that's plausible, right? This team, I don't think, proved enough. I think they've done a really good job over this hot streak. But again, as I said many times, tomorrow starts the pressure. Tomorrow starts our expectation of this team. Now, if you have a negative expectation of this team, that's fine. That's your opinion. Nobody's going to stop you from talking about that. But you also have to remember, they still went on this hot streak that nobody thought they would prior to the player meeting. So what are you going to do? You're going to watch the game, and if they win, you're going to be happy. You're going to lose, you're going to be pissed, right? Just like every other fan. Yeah, Mania and Quintana need to pitch better. Now, Quintana last time out pitched extremely well. Now, Mania, unfortunately, is not a guy that is able to go through the lineup a third time, right? That's been proven enough times, right? I would have probably took him out a little bit early if I was Mendoza, but even when he put the bullpen in, the bullpen didn't do a good job. So it was kind of a catch-22 there. You do if you damned if you do, you damned if you don't. So in that situation, it just seemed like it wasn't happy. It wasn't the Mets' day yesterday, right? No matter what Mendoza would have done, it felt like it wasn't going to work. So again, Quintana's got a big start tomorrow, right? He's facing Imanaga. That's going to be a tough task, but don't worry about Imanaga. Just worry about yourself. If he pitches like he did last time out, you're going to have a chance to win. And let's not make no mistake about this, guys. The New York Mets have been playing close games. Regardless of it's a high-scoring game or a low-scoring game, they've been in a ball game late. Either they had to come back and win or they've been holding on to a lead. They've been in every game. And we keep on talking about this. We talked about it on the roundtable with Hector Hayden, myself, and Chris. We talked about it on the pre and post. We talked about it on any other show any of us are on. The fact of the matter is the Mets are in every ball game against good teams and against bad teams. We talked about May, how they blow 9 late inning leads in May. You cut that in half, you're 3 games over 500 instead of 3 games under. That's the difference. So I expect them to be in every ball game. Now I'm going to tell you they're going to win them. Who knows? It's up in the air. But don't talk about clutch. Don't talk about this player or that player being hot or clutch. Because tomorrow, I want to see that clutchness from every player that's hot right now. Show me something. You just lost, and now you're facing a team that you're right with in the standings of a wild card. Win. That's it. You can, at worst, you go 2-4 on this road trip. That's worst case scenario. You win one more game, you come 500 on the road. And let's make no mistake about it, guys. Going 500 on the road is what you're supposed to do. Because the Mets played like dog crap in May and put themselves way back, and they had to fight back and get back into this race, they can't afford to have a 500 road trip, even though they could. And I don't think they're going to, because nobody's running away with these wild cards. Let's be honest. I mean, the Nationals have been playing extremely well, and the Nationals team, who some people thought are better than the Mets swept, right? So it's not like that, they have to like have. Can they have still a 5-1 road trip? Absolutely. They can have a 4-2 road trip. I think anything 3-3 and above is beautiful. It's great. I don't want a 2-4. Don't get swept. But a 500 road trip is okay. Going back home is okay. Now, I'm not going to say I'm going to have a smile on my face, especially when you win the first 2 in Texas. But it's not the end of the world. Because the way this wild card is, if the Mets end up the road trip, maybe a game and a half, 2 games back, you're still right in it. So that's where we are right now when it comes to the stand-ins, what I want to see from this team, right? Because, guys, we're still in a hot streak. Just because they lost 1 game doesn't mean they're not in a hot streak. The winning streak is over, but the hot streak is still around. Keep it going. Take 2 out of 3 against the Cubs, and you're 9-1 in your last 10. I think we'll take that, right? I take that. Or not, 8-2 in your last 10. Take care of that. That's what you got to do. That's signs of a good team. Yeah, but Jeremy, I don't want to hear, you need a good pitching staff, all right? Nobody knew who half the Arizona Diamondbacks pitchers were besides Gallen, all right? Did you see the pitchers that stepped up for the Diamondbacks? It was young kids, and it was, run-of-the-mill guys who nobody ever heard of until the playoffs. So let's not act like you need a great pitching staff, because the Dodgers, And the Phillies had a better pitching staff than the Arizona Diamondbacks. And what happened? The Diamondbacks beat them. Doesn't matter. In the postseason, you don't just need good pitching and good offense. Everything's got to come together at the right time. If you're hot, you're hot. It's been since this new wild card has taken place in the playoffs, we've already noticed that the hot team goes on the run, regardless of record, regardless of your roster. The 2022 Phillies were one of the worst defensive teams in baseball. They had one of the worst bullpens in baseball. And then all of a sudden, they came into the playoffs. They had one of the best bullpens in the postseason. And they had better defense in the postseason. That doesn't just turn around like they had 13 different new players. They added one or two guys in the bullpen that were decent, but not perfect and great. And their defense was the same players. They played better. They were on a hot streak, and they took it into the playoffs. So it has nothing to do with – now, obviously, we would love Kodai Senga back pitching well as our age, right? But let's not act like Luis Severino has been terrible. He's been our best pitcher. He's had a 3.1 ERA. And I guarantee most of you guys didn't think he would even have a 4 ERA. So Severino has pitched good enough, and he has the stuff to be that guy. But you could talk about the starting being questionable. I tend to agree with you, but it doesn't matter in the postseason. All you need is one or two pitchers to get hot, regardless of the name. Right? It was Gallen and who else? That's what that people talked about on the broadcast for the Diamondbacks. And then the rookie Fott was the second guy. He was a rookie. So you just got to have somebody step up. What if Kodai Senga comes back in the second half, pitches well, looks like the guy that we all believe he is, and you have Severino who steps up or somebody else that steps up? It's very possible. And you see what happens when a Mets team who gets hot, what they can do lineup-wise, right? Because the last time I checked, the best teams always don't make the playoffs. The best roster always don't make the playoffs. The best pitching staff always doesn't make the World Series. So in this new age of baseball with this extra wild card team, anybody can win. Just make it. And I think we lose focus of that because I've heard many times from Met fans, oh, well, guess what? Like Jeremy said, like people are talking about, well, why make the playoff as a 500 team? You're just going to get destroyed in the playoffs. In what world? Because what I've seen is that teams that are much less than the teams they face have made World Series runs, have made runs in the playoffs. And it's back-to-back seasons in 22 and 23. The Phillies and the Diamondbacks, two teams were a couple of games over 500. If you look at their record in September, going into the playoffs, they had one of the better hot streaks and the better runs going into the playoffs. And if you are that last wild card, who cares? And if you worry about record based on any reason, right? We've seen in football, an under 500 team makes the playoffs and wins a playoff game. Now, I'm not telling you the Mets are going to go on a run if they make the playoffs at 82 and 80 or 81 and 81. I'm not going to say that, but the landscape of the playoffs since this extra wildcard team has been implemented has shown you that anybody can win. It's very simple. It's just how it works. I don't know why. Usually it used to, when I was growing up, the best teams are usually either at least in the championship series, most likely in the World Series. So usually it was most of the time the two best teams in the World Series. But it's not that much of, written up that way. It's just not how it works anymore. I don't know why. I don't know, it's just maybe the extra round. Maybe it's more games. Maybe it's the extra team. Who knows? Maybe it's the team with the best record gets the bye. I don't know. I can't tell you. But what I do know, which is already proven because it's facts, we've seen it 2 years in a row since this extra wildcard team has been implemented. Those teams have gone on runs, and they haven't been division winners. They've been wildcard teams. Had a couple of games over 500, right? The Arizona Diamondbacks, what were they? 3 games, 4 games on the over 500 last year. Beat a 100-win Dodger team, and a pretty damn good Philly team. Oh, by the way, also was a wildcard team. So before we kind of say, well, who cares if they make the playoffs? They're going to get killed. You haven't been paying attention, or you just don't want to. You don't expect the Mets to do that, but because it's the Mets. And that's not the way you should look at it at all. Because I can assure you, you were probably thinking the same thing about the 2015 Mets prior to the deadline. Because they weren't a good team prior to the deadline. They were basically a 500 team prior to the deadline in 2015. So I see it a lot differently. And again, I'm not telling you that this team's going to make the playoffs. I'm telling you that they're in the mix. That's a fact. And luckily for the Mets, the National League is mediocre. And by the way, when you make the playoffs, do you think these teams are not going to be mediocre? Right? There's going to be 2 wildcard teams that are going to be mediocre. The Atlanta Braves are very vulnerable. So, yeah, you got to worry about the Dodgers. You got to worry about the Phillies. Right? Last time I checked, the Mets played pretty well against the Dodgers. They got swept against the Dodgers at home, but they played well in LA. Right? The Phillies are a really good team, but you see they can be beat. They're not a perfect team. And I can't find, is there a perfect team? Some are probably going to pick up the best teams in baseball, right? Some are going to say the Yankees. Some are going to say the Orioles. Some probably will say the Phillies. But every team is vulnerable. It's baseball, especially nowadays in this new age of baseball. Let me just look at the comments, guys, before we call it a stream. Jeremy, they have a shot at the 3rd wild card after not too sure. What are you talking about? Are you not paying attention to the wild card standings? They're a game out of the 2nd wild card, just like they're a game out of the 3rd wild card. The 2nd and 3rd wild card team are a game on the 500. They do have a shot. It's simple math. It's not hard to figure out. Yeah, but we already played 70. Some played a couple more games than the Mets. Some already played 75, 76 games. The Mets are playing their 74th tomorrow. You could say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean they're going to be 84 and 85, because the last time I checked, the 2nd wildcard team at best was 3 games over 500. That's the high mark. Why do we assume? And the problem with your comment there is, look at all the Central teams in the mix. They're going to beat up on each other. So it's going to be very hard for them unless one team goes on a major hot streak and starts beating their teams in their division. The Cardinals, the Pirates, the Cubs, and even the Reds, all in the mix. They play each other a ton. They're going to beat up on each other. So it's going to be hard for them to go on hot streaks unless one team, which is only going to be one team, go on this crazy hot streak and start beating everybody in their division and everybody they play over like a 10 to 15 game stretch. So that's the only difference with your comment, which, look, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a team that might have 84 and 85 wins. But that's probably going to be the 2nd wild card the way the National League is. Nobody has been playing well at all. And what you're also forgetting is that there might be some teams that actually might sell because they want to sell, right? The Cubs might sell. They might sell a couple of their free agent players that are going to be free agents. What if the Cubs sell? What if the Reds sell off a couple of high priced guys, or just say, you know what, we're not there yet, right? You don't know. What if Pittsburgh falls out of the mix? Because it all depends on where these teams are at the deadline. Because there's a possibility that one or two of these teams, including the Mets, by the way, decide to sell. So that's 2 less teams you have to worry about, maybe more. Because I'm pretty sure everybody who's seen this wild card mix, which is almost everybody, there's going to be teams that sell. There's owners that don't want to continue to pay their payroll. There might be a GM out there that thinks that this team is not good enough to add. So you're going to hover around 500 hoping to make the playoffs while you could have got a ton of prospects back, which a lot of GMs think about. So there's a possibility that 2 or 3 of these teams jump out of the race based on selling at the deadline. And the Mets are included in that because there's still a month until the deadline, a month in like 10 days. So it's possible. But to say that a wild card team is going to be 84 and 85, okay, there's no reason why the Mets can't be that. Like, it's possible. It is very possible. You know, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but again, a lot of these teams who are, again, every team that besides the Braves in the wild card are under 500. So why do we assume that they're going to win 50 more games or 48 more games? They could win 44 more games, 45 more games. Because what I've seen through the first 70 plus games, nobody's really going on these big runs and going away from the pack. Now, it's still possible, but you know, you're telling me that the other teams are going to do it. Why? They haven't proven it, just like the Mets haven't proven it. Why can't the Mets do that? You're already assuming that another team that is mediocre also going to be doing that. But not the Mets? Why not? It's possible. Just because you don't think so doesn't mean it's not possible. Is it likely? Who knows? That's why we watch. Muted, you can talk about Grimace all you want, buddy. But you're not being realistic, though. You're being realistic towards a Mets perspective. There's fans just like you that are fans of the Cardinals, the fans of the Nationals, fans of the Padres, Diamondbacks, so on and so forth, are saying the exact same thing. You're telling me that the St. Louis Cardinals that have been just as mediocre as the New York Mets, the Nationals, the Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Chicago Cubs, the San Francisco Giants, some of them are going to go on this major hot streak that they've to win 50 plus games, because even that, they have to win about 44, 45, 46 games to get to 83, 84 wins, right? 43, 44 more victories. You're just assuming that a few of those teams are going to do that. But you're not counting the Mets in that. I don't understand that. A Nationals team that the Mets swept, by the way, right? A Pittsburgh team that swept, by the way. So, you know, we can look at the Giants. The Giants played extremely well against the Mets. They're right next to the Mets now. Same amount of games out. So you're assuming that another mediocre team in the National League or two are going to win 45, 46 more games just like that, because they're not the Mets. But if the Mets do that, you don't expect that because it's the Mets, which is silly. But I'm on board with you. This series against the Cubs is more telling than the hot streak everybody loved. Right? Grimace, the Mets, everybody's clutch all of a sudden. When everybody wanted to trade Lindor and trade Pete Alonso, all of a sudden, right? I'm one of them. Who I think that if you have to become sellers, you got to trade them. Sorry. I'm sorry for you Pete Alonso fans. Sorry. Right? People wanted to trade Lindor when we weren't doing well. So the fact is, and I'm assuming you agree, since I just talked about this very much earlier in the stream. The New York Mets have expectations from fans now. No matter if they're very high or they're still on that let's wait and see mode. There's expectations now. Met fans are turning on the TV to watch the game because it's intriguing again. So the pressure is on. The bounce back is being waited. You're waiting for this bounce back, because if it doesn't happen, you're gonna have more Met fans that are not too sure like he, which is fine. I'm not saying you have to be a true believer. I'm not telling you that I'm a true believer that this team's gonna just go on this. They're just gonna keep winning, or not have long losing streaks and do their job and be 500 on the road, over 500 at home. Get over 500. I'm not. They might still get over 500, but what I've seen from the National League hasn't been appealing either, and that's a fact. So again, I agree with you. This series is more important than the winning streak. Now, the winning streak got you back into this, but again, the winning streak, everybody looks good. Now you lost. Bounce back. Go out there and beat up on a good pitcher, really good pitcher in Shota Imanaga. Because the Mets during that stretch have been beating up on good pitching. You can't just fall apart now. Because as fast as everybody started to believe a little bit more, they will stop believing very quickly. People will step on Grimace. People will say, oh, here come the Mets once again. They turned into a pumpkin once again. You can't have what happened after the Dodger game in LA at the end of April, and then you went on that terrible May. You cannot do that. You do that, there will be 100% fire sale for the New York Mets at the deadline, and I'll be 100% on board. Because you proved once again, for all the fans that love some of these players more than anybody else, if you don't have a fire sale at the deadline, you're not doing the team any service. Because you're not winning, so what are you doing? You're going to get nothing for certain free agents that are probably not going to come back after this year, no matter who they are. The Mets, David Stern set this team up that if they are in a run for a wild card, you can probably do a semi-buy, get maybe a bullpen arm, maybe another bat or a pitcher or a starting pitcher to help this team. Or he set up this team as well with a lot of one-year deals, 1 year with options, free guys who are on going to be a free agent after this year, that if things don't work out, you can trade those guys and get assets back. David Stearns made this roster to go either way. If we're in it, great. We can hold on to this roster or add. Or if it doesn't go well, trade off your 1 year, the guys on 1 year deals and soon to be free agents. So there's still options here. The players decide what the GM's going to, what the player of baseball ops and David Stern's going to do. Right? So, because I don't want to hear the players bitch and moan if they don't do their job and they fall back, down to reality and don't do well over this next month of games. And David Stearns decides to sell, and I'm going to hear certain guys on his team, oh, we were still in it, blah, 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 like they did last year and cried like babies. You messed up. If you were better, we wouldn't have to have this deadline of selling guys off. So they have an opportunity to stop David Stearns from selling. It's just that simple. Play well, David Stearns will keep you guys around and probably add. If you don't do well, don't expect to sit around and not get assets for all your soon-to-be free agents and 1 year deal type of guys, because it's bad business. You hold on to something like this, David Stearns should be fired if you don't play well. And he's like, oh, we're only 3.5 games, 4 games back. Let's hold on and see what happens. And then you lose all your free agents, or most of them, and you could have got a ton of assets back. Not saying that these assets are going to be good, but that's what you do. When you're not good, you trade off what you can trade off and get assets back. That's what you do. That's how you build up a farm when you're not doing well. So they got a big opportunity here to beat a team that they're right with in Chicago that have not been good this year. Take 2 out of 3. End the road trip 4-2. Come back home on another off day on Monday and get ready to face the Yankees. That's it. That's all you got to do. That's what I want to see. So, guys, to finish up, let me just check a couple of comments before we go. Steven, yeah, we could talk about the pitchers need to go more than 5 innings, but again, look around baseball. To be quite honest with you, it doesn't happen anymore that much. Like it, honestly, honest to God. Look, I'm old school. I love to see guys go 6+ innings, but it's not a reality much anymore. Like, if I'm not mistaken, I think I checked this about 3 weeks ago. The average starting pitcher goes 5 2/3 innings. That's the average of Major League Baseball. That is disgusting. Now, with the new age of baseball, and you got 400 bullpen arms now on your roster, did they set these guys up to go 5 innings now? Now, unless you're guys like the top of the, like the Garrett Coles of the world, the top pitchers in baseball are the ones that go deep in games. Other than that, everybody's a 5-inning pitcher. When the MLB average is 5 2/3, the Mets pitching is exactly where the MLB average is. So I don't know what to tell you. I don't like it. I hate it. But the way baseball's set up now, when you got 400 bullpen arms in your bullpen, they set these guys up now to go 5 innings, 5 2/3. Like that's what they do now. So because a lot of these analytics tells you that the third time through the order, the pitcher gets worse. So they take him out regardless. So I don't know what to tell you with that. Yeah, Jeremy. Well, the Mets are playing 2 day games. They're playing a day game tomorrow. I think it's 2:00 if I'm not mistaken. And they're playing a day game on Saturday. Unfortunately, we would have had a day game on Sunday, but Sunday Night Baseball thinks they're the best thing since sliced bread, so they got to play a night game. Yeah, exactly. And another thing too, guys, the Mets actually have their rotation set and the Cubs don't have their rotation set. Now, I haven't checked it in a few hours. I don't know if they updated it, but game 2 and game 3 is TBD. So that's how uncertain they are about who's pitching in those games. And this is a big series for them too. Let's not make no mistake about it. Yeah, we're talking about the Mets, but hey, Hector, absolutely. I'm actually excited to see how this team bounces back as well, because this is where it gets serious. This is where, shit hits the fan, right? Because if they don't bounce back, the hot streak is for nothing. You can't lose 2 out of 3 here. Now, it's not the end of the world going 3-3 on a road trip, because you're supposed to go 500 on the road trip, but they didn't afford themselves with the May they had to go 500 on the road trip. Now, it's not going to bury us, most likely, because nobody runs away with these wild cards right now. But winning the first 2 in Texas, you can't lose 3 out of the next 4. It just puts a sour taste in your mouth. And the pressure is on. All them clutch performances, I'm going to put those in quotes, because when your team is red hot and everything's going right, is it really clutch? Tomorrow, I want to see the big hit, and I'll call you clutch, because that's when it's going to matter after a game after you came off a loss. Because as quickly as people want to call players clutch, and look, everybody talk about him not being clutch. Name your player. Tomorrow is when I start calling players clutch. When you come off a loss and you still go after it and do the job and get the job done. Right? Pressure is on, expectation is on. Remember what JD Martinez said, what he talked about in the players' meeting. Guys, nobody thinks we're going to win. Everybody thinks we're bad. Everybody don't think we're going to make the playoffs. Everybody thinks we're one of the worst teams in baseball. So there's no pressure. Play like there's no pressure. Well, they played like there's no pressure. Now there's pressure. Now there's expectation. Now tomorrow, after a loss, after your winning streak is over, which, again, their hot streak is still going on. You win tomorrow, there's still a hot streak. You lose tomorrow, the hot streak's kind of lukewarm. So win tomorrow. You're facing Shota Imanaga, tough matchup. But the Mets during this stretch, this hot streak, have been beaten up on good pitching. They got to continue that. With Jose Quintana on the mound, whose last time out pitched extremely well. We need another start like that from Quintana. So, guys, with that said, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me on this off day. Mets Talk Live off day edition. Make sure you hit on that like button before you go. And make sure, guys, that you realize, regardless of record, the National League is not very good. And that includes the Mets. Make the playoffs, and nobody is going to care about the record. Because if they win a series, if that happens down the road, nobody's going to care. The Philly fans didn't care, and the Arizona Diamondbacks didn't care when they were just a game or two over 500, 3 games over 500, making the playoffs. Just make the playoffs, anything can happen. So, yes, the Mets have a chance. Some might not still believe it, which is absolutely okay. You have every right to think that. But if they find a way, it's going to be a lot of fun. And it starts tomorrow with the bounce back after a loss against Shota Imanaga and the Cubs. With that said, guys, thank you for tuning in to Mets Talk Live. Have a great day, guys. Have a great night. See you tomorrow for probably a pregame with Chris, most likely. And we'll preview tomorrow's game, and we'll get more into the game, the lineup, and all that fun stuff as well. So have a great night, guys. Let's go, Mets. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great night, guys. We'll see you next time.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets.